Overnight, thousands of American farmers woke up to a disaster they never saw coming. $35 million worth of pork shipments abruptly rejected at Chinese ports. China's move, canceling more than 3,200 metric tons of U.S. pork and putting up to 12,000 tons at risk, didn't just disrupt trade. It sent a shockwave through the American agricultural heartland. Coming just days after the U.S. announced sweeping new tariffs on Chinese goods, this retaliation marks the largest pork cancellation in over a year and signals a major escalation in the U.S.-China economic conflict. For American pork producers, who depend heavily on exports to China and Hong Kong, previously their second-largest market, the consequences are immediate and brutal. With China battling African swine fever and needing pork imports more than ever, this sudden blockade points to something bigger. Beijing is now using food trade as a weapon in the global economic war. The collapse in pork shipments raises urgent questions about the stability of global meat supply chains and whether American agriculture can survive the next phase of this escalating conflict. Stay with us as we break down what happened, who stands to gain, and how this could change the future of global trade. So let's delve deeper into the details. Chinese customs officials at the Ningbo and Dalian ports suddenly stopped processing U.S. pork shipments. No warning, no public explanation, just an abrupt halt. Within a few hours, millions of dollars worth of pork was left sitting at the docks, and about $35.4 million in trade deals were canceled. According to data from Chinese customs and U.S. agricultural exports, this was the largest mid-shipment cancellation of pork in over 5 years. What made this move even more alarming was the silence that surrounded it. Normally, when tensions rise between the U.S. and China, there are public accusations, official statements, and heavy media coverage. This time, Beijing said nothing. Analysts immediately took notice. Something about China's way of handling economic battles was clearly changing. Why would China stay quiet when disrupting such a major trade channel? For years, China's trade disputes with the United States followed a predictable pattern. If Washington raised tariffs, Beijing would fire back with clear public measures, often proudly announced to the world. During the 2018 to 2019 trade war, for example, China loudly imposed counter-tariffs and rallied its media to paint the United States as the aggressor. Their aim was always to show strength, both at home and abroad. But this time, the response was different. China is directly responding to long-standing U.S. tariffs and trade tensions that have pushed Chinese retaliatory tariffs on American pork to a staggering cumulative 172%. This massive tariff wall effectively shuts U.S. producers out of the world's largest pork import market. And China isn't waiting around. Countries like Brazil are rapidly stepping in to fill the gap, leveraging more favorable trade terms and booming demand across Asia. New analysis from institutions like the Peterson Institute and Bloomberg suggests that China has shifted to a strategy known as precision decoupling. Rather than engaging in headline-grabbing confrontations, Beijing is now carrying out targeted economic measures designed to weaken key American industries, all while avoiding political escalation. Could this mark the start of a more calculated and dangerous phase in the U.S.-China economic conflict? Take, for example, China's strategy of devaluing the yuan. It was also a stealth move. Through targeted economic strikes, China is reshaping the battlefield, and the United States is dangerously unprepared. When pressure is applied without clear signals or announcements, the damage spreads faster and defenses lag behind. A single disruption can cripple vital industries while leaders scramble to understand what's happening. Traditional responses, negotiations, public statements, fall flat when the real battle is unfolding through unpredictable economic maneuvers. What makes this approach dangerous is how quickly it can inflict deep localized damage. With no clear aggressor to blame, American industries like agriculture are left isolated and politically exposed. If Beijing continues perfecting these tactics, it could strike directly at the core of U.S. economic strength. And agriculture may only be the first target. The immediate effects of the pork ban were devastating. That 12,000 tons, About 110,000 full-grown hogs represents not just lost cargo, but lost futures for thousands of American farmers. Cold storage units, already nearing their seasonal limits, overflowed. Farmers had no choice but to sell their hogs at steeply reduced prices. The numbers tell a brutal story. In just 1 week, U.S. pork sales to China collapsed by 72%, triggering a chain reaction of financial losses across rural America. This catastrophic drop has sent shockwaves through rural economies, where farmers are seeing their livelihoods evaporate almost overnight. In Sioux County, Iowa, Brad T. Grutenhuis, a major hog producer, warns that hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses are now looming on the horizon. The financial pain is so severe that many farmers are being forced to delay vital investments and expansion plans, putting the future of American pork production at serious risk. Minnesota, the nation's second-largest pork producer, is also buckling under the pressure. The state depends heavily on the import of piglets from Canada, nearly 750,000 a year, to sustain its farms. But tariffs slapped on Canadian goods, including essential agricultural materials like fertilizer, are squeezing farmers even harder. Costs are rising, markets are shrinking, and hope is dwindling. Even veteran politicians like Senator Chuck Grassley, a staunch supporter of rural America, have been forced to acknowledge the gathering storm. Grassley warned that Iowa's pork profits are under direct threat, hinting at the dangerous political consequences that could soon follow. Meanwhile, other countries such as Brazil and Germany are already moving in, poised to steal away the global pork markets that American farmers are now being shut out of. The Trump administration is scrambling to offer financial aid packages, but farmers are making it clear they do not want bailouts. They want their markets back. Temporary subsidies cannot repair the long-term damage being inflicted by reckless trade wars. If urgent action is not taken, America could soon lose its position as a global agricultural powerhouse. Rural towns, the backbone of the U.S. economy, could face a wave of bankruptcies, job losses, and irreversible decline. What is scary about this is not just the economic impact it would have on the United States, but the political impact. Let me explain. Farmers have long been one of Donald Trump's strongest pillars of political support. In the 2020 election, Trump secured over 65% of the rural vote nationwide, with margins as high as 80% in critical farming states like Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota. Fast forward to the 2024 elections, and the trend only deepened. Trump carried Iowa by 8.2%, with exit polls showing that nearly 70% of voters from farming households backed him. In Wisconsin, another agriculture-heavy state, Trump clawed back key rural counties that had wavered in 2020. For Trump, farmers are not just voters. They are the beating heart of his political machine. Rural America delivered him the presidency once, nearly delivered it again, and remains crucial if he hopes to maintain his influence or mount another political comeback. Without the loyalty of the Corn Belt and hog counties, Trump's political empire crumbles like dry topsoil in a drought. Beijing understands this arithmetic better than anyone. China's recent decision to halt U.S. pork imports, stripping American farmers of tens of millions of dollars almost overnight, was no accident. It was a cold, calculated move aimed squarely at Trump's electoral foundation. In 2022, China ranked as the second-largest market for U.S. pork, purchasing over $2.5 billion worth of American meat. For key farming states like Iowa, Minnesota, and Missouri, where pork production powers local economies, access to Chinese buyers isn't just important, it's essential for survival. By cutting off U.S. farmers from one of their most profitable markets, China is applying pressure where it hurts Trump the most, his rural base. And the results are already visible. Pork prices are plummeting, farm incomes are falling, local banks are tightening credit. The once reliable backbone of Trump's political movement is beginning to feel abandoned, angry, and dangerously vulnerable. It's a brilliant yet ruthless tactic by Beijing. Drawing from its new precision tactics, China is now applying focused economic pain, aimed squarely at Trump's rural strongholds. The message to Trump is unmistakable. Play nice, or watch your base bleed out one angry farmer at a time. The deeper danger for Trump is that this strategy forces him into a painful dilemma. Does he stand firm on tariffs and risk a rural rebellion? Or does he soften his stance toward China? A move that could be seen as weakness by the very voters who admire him for being tough? Not only is Trump facing pressure from the farmers, but one of the biggest headaches for him has been the stock market. Stock prices for major U.S. pork producers like Tyson Foods and Hormel Foods dropped sharply this month, sending waves of concern across Wall Street. However, financial analysts were split in their reactions. Citigroup brushed off the decline as a short-term problem. Meanwhile, Morgan Stanley warned that the industry could be facing a deeper, long-term shift. For example, lean hog futures fell sharply in just one day, dropping by about $2.90 to $3.90. Even so, April contracts stayed mostly stable because of the market index, rising slightly by 15 cents. According to the USDA's Friday morning report, the national average base price for hogs went up by 4 cents to $87.38. At the same time, the CME's lean hog index, which tracks overall market trends, slipped by 8 cents, landing at $88.72 as of April 2nd. Also, major pork producers, including Tyson Foods, are facing a staggering $64 million in new settlements over price-fixing allegations. The settlement comes after accusations that the companies colluded to artificially inflate pork prices, leaving consumers and farmers paying the price. The deal follows an extensive investigation into the industry's pricing practices, which has already triggered massive public outrage and government scrutiny. This development comes at a time of heightened market instability, with U.S. pork prices already under significant pressure from the ongoing U.S.-China trade war. The $64 million settlement is only the latest in a series of legal challenges facing the pork industry, which has been grappling with a shrinking share of China's pork market and the fallout from retaliatory tariffs. The financial blow to these companies is just the beginning. As American pork producers struggled to regroup, international rivals like Brazil and Spain seized their opportunity and moved fast. While American pork sat idle, Brazil and Spain raced to fill China's supply gap. Brazilian pork exports to China rose by 26% in April, while Spain's exports jumped 23%, according to the latest trade figures. Fast-track trade deals helped these countries replace U.S. pork with remarkable speed. By the end of April, Brazil and Spain together supplied 48% of China's pork imports. The U.S. share had fallen sharply to just 19%, a stunning loss for American farmers. China is no longer willing to depend on what it calls unstable foreign suppliers. A major new food security plan aims to cut that reliance by 40% by 2028. Investment in Chinese farming has surged. Spending on domestic agriculture has quadrupled. New massive grain storage centers are being built, and fresh import deals have been signed with Brazil, Spain, Argentina, and Russia. The results are already visible. U.S. soybean exports to China dropped to its lowest level this year alone, replaced largely by Brazilian and Paraguayan shipments. China's food buying changes are not just a small adjustment. They are part of a much larger economic shift. Corn imports from the U.S. have dropped by 33%, and beef imports have been slashed by half. Behind the scenes, China's state-owned COFCO Group has been steadily canceling contracts with American suppliers. Meanwhile, China has signed 20-year deals with Russia for wheat, barley, and beef. These agreements could permanently shut American producers out of one of the world's largest food markets. As we've seen, the global economy is entering a dangerous new phase, with unpredictable market shifts, escalating trade tensions, and legal battles shaking industries like U.S. pork. The question now is, can American producers adapt fast enough? Or will they be permanently sidelined in the new global order? We'll be tracking every major move that shapes this new reality. Subscribe now and stay ahead of the curve. Because in a world changing this fast, staying informed isn't just important, it's essential.